So we all know that some niche fragrances can go for hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of dollars. Well, in this video, I'm going to show you how to save a little bit of money by opting for some more inexpensive variants. So stay tuned. Before I begin the video, I do want to mention that some of these more expensive fragrances are fragrances that I absolutely love. So my main advice will always be, if you've tried some of the more expensive counterparts and you really do like those fragrances, I would urge you to go out there and purchase that fragrance. Oftentimes, these companies do use a lot of ingredients that are only found in the expensive counterpart. And so if you are looking to purchase these inexpensive variants as a means of saving some money, then I think that that is a wise option. But if you're looking to get them to supplant 100% the more expensive counterpart, I don't think you will ever find a 100% accurate clone or iteration of these fragrances. And that also brings me to my second point, which is that not necessarily all of these fragrances in this list are going to be clones of the more popular or the more expensive fragrance. A lot of times it just kind of puts me in the same mindset, or I think they're in the same olfactory family. That's not necessary. It doesn't necessarily say that these fragrances that are inexpensive were made for the sole purpose of being clones of the more expensive fragrance. It just so happens that they smell very similar to one another. And so, one, I always recommend that you go out there and you purchase the more expensive version of each one of these fragrances. And two, if you are looking to purchase the more inexpensive version, do so at the risk of knowing that it might not smell 100% like the same thing, but a lot of them, in full disclosure, they do get it quite close. Now, the reason I'm making this video is because I've actually done this video in the past. I've already made 3 versions of it, so this is part 4. If you're interested in checking out any of those other videos, I'm going to link them down below, so definitely make sure to check it out. I know it's been a few years since I've made such a video. But let's go ahead and start it off with the number 10. So the number 10 spot actually smells like a fragrance that is not so expensive, which is why I'm featuring it towards the tail end of this list. And the fragrance smells like Versace Eros. So Versace Eros is the more expensive, although I think we can all agree that for a designer fragrance that can be found heavily discounted online, it's not super expensive. But if Versace Eros is expensive for you, the one that I would recommend you go out there and check out is by a company called Dossier, and this one is called Fresh Woody 3. And so what this company does is they make fragrances for a fraction of the cost of the more expensive designer fragrances, and they're supposed to mimic the smell of designer fragrances. Now, this is one that I've given 2 or 3 really good wearings of, and what I can say is that yes, it actually does smell a lot like Versace Eros. I think it comes 95% similar or something like that. I hate getting into percentages because, I think smell is personal, and I think it's subjective, and so what smells similar to my nose might not to somebody else, but I do think that this one comes quite close to Versace Eros. The next fragrance that I want to talk about, so the more expensive variant, is a fragrance by Creed called Millésime Imperial. And this one, a lot of people say smells like a salted watermelon. It's fresh, it's aquatic. It happens to be one of my favorite fragrances. Now, the fragrance that I've actually been wearing in its place with comparable performance, maybe even slightly better performance, is by Parfum Vintage, and this one is called Rush of Unicorns. This one was made to be a stronger version of Millésime Imperial. So yes, this is the direct inspiration. It didn't just happen haphazardly that they released a fragrance that ended up smelling like the Creed variant. They actually made this as a sort of reverse engineered version of Creed's Aventus. And they did get it quite close, and like I said earlier, I actually get improved performance from this one. So that's one that I will continue to wear in place of the more expensive Creed's Millésime Imperial. Now, one thing that you might have noticed so far is that at the bottom of each video, I'm also going to put a price comparison between the two, just to sort of show you how much money you'd be saving by opting for one of the more inexpensive versions. But again, keep in mind, if you want the real thing, you gotta get the real thing, right? So the next one that I want to talk about is Neroli Portofino by Tom Ford. This is one that I've had for quite a few years now. I put quite a dent in it, and this is one that is so perfect for the summertime. Now, this is a neroli heavy scent. It has a lot of citrus in here, very bright and uplifting, just perfect for the summertime. That's, believe it or not, the only season that I would recommend you wear this one in. And I know in the past I've spoken about fragrances like 4711 and perhaps some other neroli heavy fragrances out there on the market. The one that I'm going to recommend this time is a fragrance from which I get really good longevity, and this one by Al Haramain, part of the portfolio collection, is called Neroli Canvas. This smells incredibly close to Tom Ford's Neroli Portofino, and I think I might go as far as saying I get slightly better performance from this one. But the performance for both leaves a lot to be desired just because it is a very citrus heavy scent, but I do get exquisite performance from Neroli Canvas. The next fragrance that I want to talk about is a fragrance that mimics a Creed fragrance. Now this is probably one of the more expensive fragrances in this list. This is Spice and Wood. So this is part of the exclusive line, and this is one that I actually got in on a split of, but I still have a lot of juice left over in this one. And so this is a fragrance that has spice and wood. There's cedar, there's a lot of like cinnamon and a lot of spicy ingredients that really give it character and depth. The one that smells like it is supposed to be a reverse engineered version of it, and it's by the company Luxor, and it's called Winter Warmer. And the notes in this one, they're written on the back for your convenience. It's apple, bergamot, lemon, angelic root, pink berries, vetiver, patchouli, cloves, pimento, birch, iris, cedarwood, and musk. And you definitely get a lot of those pink berries with the cedarwood and those spicy nuances. So these are 10 through 7 in the list. Now the next fragrance that I want to talk about is from the company Parfum de Marly. This one is called Delina. This actually happens to be one of my favorite women's fragrances of all time. Probably my favorite right next to Aqua Fiorentina by Creed. And the fragrance that has cloned this is by the company Alexandria, and this is called Lady Diana. In the opening spray, they actually smell very, very close. Once you let it settle for like half an hour to an hour, they start to sort of go in their own direction, but for a clone of Parfum de Marly's Delina that gets it quite close, it's one that I would recommend, and it's one that I actually think works really well. The next one that I want to talk about is a clone of Santal 33, and let me just show you my Santal 33 bottle, which is now empty. For the second time. My wife loves wearing this one. It's also one of my favorite scents. I think it's a very unique scent, but unfortunately it is one of the most cloned scents out there today. And the one that I would recommend is by Zara, and it's called Scent Number 1. So this one gets it very, very, very close to Santal 33 in terms of the smell, but unfortunately not in terms of the performance. The performance for this one leaves a lot to be desired. The original Santal 33 will last you 10 hours, whereas the Zara counterpart will last you 2 hours. So the performance is very different, but for the price tag, it's one that you can afford to spray on several times throughout the day. The next fragrance that I want to talk about is, so I'm going to show you what the expensive counterpart is. It's Kilian's Intoxicated. And so this is a sort of caramel patchouli kind of a scent. And this one actually came out second. The inexpensive version of that would be Mugler's Amen, or Angel for Men. Very, very similar DNA. Of course, the niche version does things a little bit more differently. I think this is the more polished version. This is the more raw and unfiltered version. But I do think that they smell quite similar. And so if you are looking for an inexpensive version of Kilian's Intoxicated, Angel Men by Mugler is a really good way to go. The next fragrance that I want to talk about, getting into the top 2 now, is the expensive version is by Roja Parfum, and it's called Elysium. Now, Elysium is one of my favorite fragrances of all time. I personally cannot recommend this one enough. It's such a great, fresh fragrance that lands me a ton of compliments every single time that I wear it. But if you are in the market for a fragrance that smells very similar to it, I would recommend you check out Elisi by Fragranza. The name is even similar, Elisi, Elysium. This one has that same bright, sparkling, effervescent opening, maybe not as bright as the original, so this one is a little bit more muted in its approach, but in the dry down they actually do start to smell quite similar to one another. So now that leaves us to the top 2. To be honest with you, these are in no particular order, but here's the way that I just sort of did it. Now the more inexpensive counterpart here would be Tom Ford's Fabulous, and this is one that got a lot of attention when it first came out. And we have a counterpart from the company Dua Fragrances, and this one is called Unbelievable, effing unbelievable. So this has that same sort of sweet, resinous, spicy quality that the original has, but this one sells for a fraction of the price. I've also had the opportunity to review this one, so I'm going to link, if I've reviewed anything, I'm going to try to link it down below. So this would come in as the more inexpensive version of the Tom Ford offering. And then for the number one scent in this list, again, in no particular order, but just the one that I saved for last, it happens to be one of my favorite fragrances of all time. This one is quite expensive. It retails for $350. It used to be an exclusive to Harrods in London, and this one by Parfum de Marly is called Carlisle. I think that the inexpensive version of this one would be by Vagabond Fragrances, and it's called Number 6. So as soon as I smelled this one, it reminded me of Carlisle and sort of Tom Ford Noir Extreme, where it kind of has like this spicy cardamom vanilla approach going on in it. I think it's a very well pieced together fragrance, and it's one that I would recommend as an alternative for Carlisle by Parfum de Marly. So there you have it, everybody. I just wanted to give you 10 fragrances that are inexpensive versions of more expensive niche and sometimes designer fragrances that can be found on the market. The reason I did this is because I do know that a lot of my subscribers and that a lot of people in general find it very difficult to cough out $300, $400, $500 for a single bottle of eau de parfum or whatever it happens to be. And so as an alternative, they would like to purchase something that conveys a very similar olfactory aura or vibe without necessarily breaking the bank. Now, once again, just to reiterate, like I did in the beginning of the video, if you like the original, I always recommend you go out there and purchase the original. The original will always contain ingredients that the alternative or that the clone or the copycat doesn't always contain, and so you're always getting a more complete version with the original. And if you are that much in love with the original, nothing else will come close except for the original. But if you are in the market for something a little bit more inexpensive, I think you will be pleasantly surprised by these variants. So there you have it, ladies and gentlemen. Thank you so much for tuning in. I really do appreciate your support. Please let me know if you have experience with any of these fragrances. Leave a comment down below. I always love to start the discussion. I always love interacting with my subscribers. And I also want to mention that if you are new to this channel, if you did take something of value from this video, I would love it if you could subscribe to my channel by clicking the red subscribe button in the corner. This way, whenever I do upload future fragrance-related content, it will get delivered straight to your feed. You never need to worry about missing any of my future uploads, and that includes top 10 lists like this one, reviews, unboxings, giveaways, interviews, and pretty much anything fragrance-related. Thanks again for watching, everyone. I love you guys. We'll see you in the next episode.